The legendary gold saints are probably the most beloved characters by fans of Saint Seiya. And as we know, there are dozens of gold saints with great achievements in the various eras and dimensions shown in the official universe of Saint Seiya. However, among all these saints, there are 13 who stand out regardless of the era they lived in, thus earning the status of legendary saints. Hello, saints and Amazons. How are you all doing? This is Wes speaking, and today here on the Sempre Quis Saber channel, I'm going to show you which are the 13 gold saints, considered by fans to be the most legendary of all eras. Are you curious to know who's on this list? So go ahead and comment which 13 saints you think are the most legendary. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Let's start the video. Saint number 1, Aries. To start our climb through the 12 houses, we arrive at the Temple of Aries. Here we have giants like Mu, Kiki, Avenir, and Gateguard. However, the title of the most legendary Aries in the history of the franchise, according to most fans, belongs to Shion of Aries, both in the Lost Canvas and in the classic saga. A descendant of the people from the continent of Mu and born in Jamiel, Shion has a grand history of battles. Trained by the legendary Hakurai of Altar in the Lost Canvas, he is not only a master of telekinesis and armor restoration, but also an absolutely incredible warrior. In the Lost Canvas, we saw the young Xion surviving a brutal holy war against Hades, facing high-level specters. His attacks, like the Star Revolution, summon the energy of falling stars and unleash them in a destructive way. Besides that, his crystal wall is an almost absolute barrier that repels almost all attack energy, sending damage back to the enemy. The fact that Shion was named the Grand Master of the Sanctuary and returned in the Hades saga of the classic anime, displaying power. Being able to rival Libra's Doko and subdue his own disciple Mu only confirms his place at the top among the Aries Knights. He combines his knowledge and wisdom when facing the god Kairos in the Lost Canvas, and also when using Athena's blood to awaken his armor and restore the most powerful bronze armors up to that point. Knight number 2, Taurus. In the Temple of Aldebaran, the giant red star at the heart of Taurus, brute strength rules. We had the great Aldebaran of Taurus in the classic anime, the relentless harbinger in Omega, who even became the Grand Master at the end of the anime, and Yoxi in Next Dimension. But the legendary monster of the Taurus sign is Hasgard, also known by the title of Aldebaran in the Lost Canvas. Hasgard raised the level of the Gold Saints to a new standard. The guy was practically an unshakable fortress, with an unquestionable sense of justice. Unlike the other Taurians, where most of them relied almost exclusively on the Great Horn skill, Hasgard developed his own technique, a terrifying trump card called Titanic Supernova. This move concentrates a devastating cosmos that rips up the very Earth, exploding the battlefield from the ground up with colossal force. The records of his battle against Kagero of Beno, a specter with power equivalent to the judges of the underworld, show Hasgard ignoring lethal burns inflicted on his legs. With enemies destroyed, at another time, fighting with ruptured eardrums and blinded in one eye just to protect his students. Things got much worse when he was... didn't they? Hasgard's physical strength is such that he could immobilize specters with a single hand. He is the pinnacle of the Taurus Saint in his most destructive and heroic form. Are Spectre Saints really as strong as they are? What makes the Gold Saints of Ascension saga so perfect? He was synonymous with the strongest and most troublesome knight of each generation. Saga of Gemini is a living legend, canon is a myth, and the crosses Aspros and Defteros have incredibly grand feats in the Lost Canvas. With all the words that came from the mouth of Ikki of Kid Phoenix himself, a man who has already faced Saga, Canon, and other incredibly powerful enemies, they were as follows. Cain of Gemini and his counterpart Abel, who are the Gold Saints in Next Dimension, are the most powerful Geminis that have ever existed. This certainly resonated among the fans, who consider these two the legendary representatives of the Gemini sign. Born in the 18th century with a bizarre mutation, a genetic and spiritual anomaly, where two minds inhabit and alternate the same body, one representing the pinnacle of justice and the other the pinnacle of evil. And Odysseus of Ophiuchus revealed that those born under the light of Gemini actually have an excess of brain cells produced during gestation. This can essentially result in the formation of an additional mind in the same body, creating an identity completely opposite to the original in order to avoid being removed from the body. This is the explanation for the condition of the twins in Next Dimension. And Cain's galactic explosion was described as the most powerful, with the most overwhelming force that Ikki had ever felt when facing other Gemini knights, even surpassing Saga's power. Cain demonstrated that his pure cosmo was so dense that it was able to shatter the body of the 13th Gold Saint. And as if it wasn't enough to be a knight with extremely destructive power, Cain masters the Kishi Kaizen technique, being able to restore the vital flow of an opponent who is on the verge of death by touching their star points. And because he has the power to pulverize constellations and, in the next moment, heal mortal wounds, Cain is considered a legendary knight. Knight number 4, Cancer. If your image of the Cancer Knight is Death Mask from the classic anime, you should know Manigold, the most respected Cancer Knight of all time. Other knights have also represented this sign, such as Death Toll, Sage, and Schiller, and all of them have their merits, but Manigold from the Lost Canvas is considered by most fans to be the most legendary of them all. Being a war orphan, Manigold grew up seeing the souls of the dead floating around him, which made him cynical, ruthless, and lethal. Adopted and personally trained by the Grand Master Sage, who is a former Cancer saint, he learned not only the waves of hell, which separate the opponent's soul from their body and send it to the hill of Yomotsu Hirasaka, but also other incredibly powerful techniques. He uses demonic flames, which use souls as fuel to burn enemies physically and spiritually with the fire of hell. Another devastating ability is the Wave of Spirits, which explodes the souls around like gunpowder, enough to wound Thanatos, the god of death, in the face. Manigold's greatest feat was simply invading the domain of the twin gods. He landed a direct punch to the face of the god of death, Thanatos, and sacrificed his own life by jumping into the god's dimension, the hyperdimension, to then destroy Thanatos' physical body. Manigold is certainly the Cancerian with the greatest audacity and legendary power of all time. Knight number 5, Leo. The title of Leo Knight, the most legendary according to most fans, doesn't go to Ioria, to Kaiser, or to the experienced Ilias. The crown of legendary Leo belongs to the absolute young prodigy, Regulus of Leo. Regulus is what happens when you put infinite talent inside the Leo gold cloth. His track record defies all logic of Saint Seiya. He had the ability to observe any technique from any enemy, analyze the flow of cosmos, and instantly learn it, improving the skill right after. During his battle in the Lost Canvas against the judge Rhadamanthus of Wyvern, who was stronger due to Hades' divine blood, and therefore seemed invincible, Regulus did the impossible. Without anyone else's help, he gathered the necessary power to unleash the forbidden technique, Athena's exclamation. Guys, to perform this forbidden technique, it takes the power of 3 gold saints, but Regulus did it alone. And when that wasn't enough to defeat Rhadamanthus, he used all his cosmos to recreate the techniques of each of the 12 constellations simultaneously and unleashed the power called Zodiac Roar. This is an insane ability that combines the ultimate attacks of all 12 gold saints into a single devastating strike. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough to defeat Rhadamanthus, who had the power of Hades' blood in his heart. And after having his physical body destroyed by using all of his cosmo, Regulus achieved the full 8th sense, becoming one with nature, and unleashed the ultimate plasma lightning, which was the attack that destroyed Rhadamanthus' divine heart. And so the legendary Regulus is simply one of the most overpowered knights in all of history. Knight number 6, Virgo. The House of Virgo is famous for sheltering the men closest to God, such as Asmita, Shijima, and Fudo. However, the legendary status goes to Shaka of Virgo, who established his position as the greatest and most divine user of the Virgo armor of all time, according to the fans, of course. Shaka is considered the reincarnation of Buddha. Since childhood, he communicated telepathically with Buddha, questioning the meaning of life, suffering, and death. By keeping his eyes closed, Shaka blocks his own vision in order to endlessly accumulate a colossal amount of cosmos. And when he opens his eyes, that cosmos explodes with the light of the creation of the universe, the Agyo. His ultimate technique, the Treasure of Heaven, is a lethal and perfect attack, creating a mandala where the opponent cannot attack or defend. Thus, stripped of all 5 senses slowly, where Shaka can even take away the enemy's 6th sense. Shaka's cosmos went beyond the 8th sense, facing even 3 gold saints at the same time, proving that he stopped being an ordinary saint and became a legendary one. Saint number 7, Libra. Among all the saints who wielded the 12 sacred weapons of Libra, such as Doku, Shiryu, and Gimbu, there is an ancient legend that makes even the respected old master seem like just an apprentice. The true unquestionable monster of the Libra sign is Itya, who, after the Holy War of the 13th century, became the supreme leader of the sanctuary, with his story presented in the Guidon of the Lost Canvas. Itya is, quite simply, one of the most overpowered saints in the entire history of the franchise. A survivor of the Holy War of the 13th century alongside Crest and Aquarius, he not only defended Athena, but also led the sanctuary as the Grand Master during the first part of the Holy War against Hades in the 16th century. The raw power of this man bordered on insanity. He had absolute control over the Libra cloth and its 12 weapons, being able to use all 12 weapons at once, something unimaginable for the Libra saints who came after him. His ultimate finishing move is called Final Judgment, being Itya's supreme technique and considered the deadliest of the Libra sign. He is able to send his opponent to the scales, which gives him the power to judge the merits of his adversary, and then launch the Libra cloth's weapons like shooting stars with great destructive power. In the Battle of the 13th century with this ability, Itya managed to destroy half of Hades' army, and when he, in the 16th century, became disappointed with humanity and regained his youth through the power of the fairies of the underworld, Itya demonstrated a strength capable of defeating other gold saints with ease. Therefore, Itya ended up betraying Athena before his death, but because of his deeds in his youth, he was certainly the most legendary among the Libra saints. 8th Saint, Scorpio. The House of Scorpio is the home of the saints whose duty is to judge their enemies using their needles. With powerful warriors like Milo and Icarlet of Scorpio as its representatives, the legendary status was given by fans to a saint known for his insane and sadistic personality. Someone with burning power. This is Cardia of Scorpio in the Lost Canvas. Cardia doesn't fight just for justice, but to feel alive. Since childhood, he has suffered from an incurable heart disease, an extreme fever that heats his heart to the point of almost killing him. He only survived this because he received a little of Athena's divine blood, but that wasn't enough to fully cure him. It only managed to prolong his life. He turned this curse into a lethal weapon, his incandescent scarlet needle, originally called Scarlet Needle or Cataquil. Unlike the standard version of Milo, which strikes the points on the opponent's body that correspond to the stars of the Scorpio constellation, being able to cause intense pain and bleeding that leads the opponent to death. Cardia's Scarlet Needle Cataquil injects the infernal heat of the fever from his own heart directly into the opponent. During his battle with Judge Rhadamanthus of Wyvern, each needle strike made the enemy's blood boil. When the 15th needle, Cataquil and Aries, was fired, the flames devoured Rhadamanthus' heart from the inside out, thus defeating one of Hades' strongest specters. Despite that, Rhadamanthus still managed to escape with Pandora and was only saved because he received the blood of Alone and Hades in his heart. Cardia also used his last strength to save Unity, who was the leader of Bluegrad and the dear friend of his companion Deagle of Aquarius. Night number 9, Sagittarius Aiolos. Aiolos of Sagittarius is a legendary hero. Sisypho was also a formidable knight, and Gestalt, a powerful and troubled knight who believed he was a centaur. However, no one surpasses the man who performed miracles and achieved the impossible several times, even before donning the golden armor. I'm talking about Sagittarius Seiya. Seiya is considered the legendary Sagittarius Knight when we consider his futuristic versions in Saint Seiya Omega and Episode G Requiem. The boy from the Pegasus constellation who holds the title of Godslayer evolved a lot in these other works. When Seiya officially wore the Sagittarius gold cloth and we learned about his story in the future, he is introduced to us as a legendary knight. After becoming known for facing several gods in Saint Seiya Omega, Seiya acquired the ability to shoot the cosmic stellar arrow, an evolution of the common ability to shoot the Sagittarius arrow. And in this variation, Seiya raises his Cosmo to increase the power of his arrow, which ends up emitting a great light, releasing thunder when it is shot, and possessing great piercing power, capable of going through enemy attacks. The Pegasus meteors are now more powerful with the Golden Cosmo. Besides, Seiya is also able to unleash the Atomic Thunder, which is one of the legendary moves of Aiolos of Sagittarius in the anime. And in the manga episode G, Rekiensei also became the Sagittarius saint and sacrificed himself to save the Earth, using a synapse armor, also known as the Chimera Gold Armor, which is formed by a fusion of pieces from the 12 original gold armors. In his final sacrifice in this saga, Seiya becomes the ultimate symbol of hope, serving as the beacon that guides humanity. Night number 10, Capricorn. It's Elcidio in the Lost Canvas who accomplished the unbelievable feat of slicing the gods of dreams and shaping his Excalibur to absolute perfection. But the expansion of the Saint Seiya universe in the episode Assassin and Requiem saga elevated Shura of Capricorn to a level of power beyond comprehension, making him an anomaly in the Saint Seiya multiverse. That's right, my friends. Forget about the Shura you saw being thrown into space by Shiryu in the Assassin episode universe and its sequel called Requiem. Shura becomes capable of traveling through dimensions, becoming the assassin who faces the highest class of evil deities across the multiverse. Shura developed such great power that he reached the 10th sense and surpassed the gods, now being condemned to travel between dimensions, since his power could cause the collapse of reality if he stays too long in the same place. Shura developed the technique to cut through entire realities and dimensions, which was named Excalibur Eclipse and the Dance of Swords. The history of this version of Shura showed that he was able to surpass the limits of the cosmos, thus becoming the Capricorn Knight with legendary status according to the fans, especially this being the opinion of the fans of the episode G saga. Night number 11, Aquarius. Camus taught Yoga how to control freezing air. Dajjal froze the fury of Poseidon's cosmos, and Mystoria guarded the house of Aquarius in Next Dimension. But the legendary knight of this sign is Zuto of Aquarius, the absolute prodigy who fought in the Holy War of the 13th century at only 13 years old, and lived for more than 500 years due to the power of Miso Feta Menos. His story is presented in the saga The Lost Canvas and its guidance, where we learn about the origin of Zuto, who is the master of Dajjal of Aquarius himself. He is a legend among legends and lived for more than 5 centuries, fighting in multiple holy wars against Hades, Aries, and Poseidon. His mastery of freezing air is on another level, but after he grows old, he falls in love with a woman who gives him back his youth. Zuto then leaves the sanctuary and adopts another name, which leads to his final confrontation, dying at the hands of his disciple, Dajjal. I admit that Crest's story is incredible, and he definitely deserves the title of Legendary Knight. But in my opinion, Aquarius Hyoga from the Assassin episodes and then Requiem is certainly the most legendary of all. Night number 12, Pisces. In the classic anime, Aphrodite was Shun's great enemy in the terrible battle of the 12 houses in the Pisces Gold Saint in Saint Seiya. Omega had a brutal level of power. But in terms of lethal efficiency, honor, and danger, Albafica of Pisces from the Lost Canvas reigns supreme, earning the title of Legendary Knight according to most fans. Abandoned as a baby in a garden of poisonous roses, Albafica was adopted by the knight Rugonas of Pisces, and at that time, he already had a resistance to the poison of the roses, and because of that, he performed the Crimson Duel ritual, exchanging a drop of his blood with his masters. For years until his blood became the most toxic and lethal poison in the world. Albafica is untouchable. Just touching him can be deadly. He masters the skills of the Royal Demon Rose, the Piranha Rose, and the inevitable Bloody Rose, which pierces the opponent's heart and drains the enemy's blood. But his greatest achievement, and what seals his title as the legendary Pisces Knight, is the Crimson Thorns technique. Albafica transforms his own hyper-poisonous blood into thousands of sharp blood needles and fires them at the opponent. Knight number 13, Ophiuchus. And now we have the knight who represents the great mystery of the sanctuary's mythological past. Ophiuchus is the hidden constellation, the sign that was cursed by the gods. We're talking about Odysseus and his predecessor, the mythological Asclepius of Ophiuchus, whose stories were presented in Next Dimension. Located between the House of Scorpio and Sagittarius, the House of Ophiuchus was guarded by the knight who was worshipped as a god within the sanctuary itself. Asclepius was the 13th gold saint in the mythological era, whose healing power made him believe he was a god. He could resurrect the dead and heal any wound, which aroused the wrath of the gods. And when he turned against Athena, his Zodiac house was destroyed, and his soul was sealed in Tartarus in the 18th century of Next Dimension. The successor to this saint is Odysseus, the man most respected and beloved by all the other gold saints of that time, since almost all of them had their lives saved by him. And when Odysseus awakens as the 13th gold knight and returns from the dead, his presence is intimidating and absolute. Being considered the most powerful gold knight, His power is capable of putting all the gold knights of the sanctuary to sleep at the same time. In addition to being able to survive any attack, he can regenerate his body even if it is torn to pieces. Odysseus of Ophiuchus is, almost unquestionably, the most powerful gold knight in the entire classic Saint Seiya saga, thus earning his legendary title. So my friends, do you agree with this list of the most legendary knights of each zodiac sign? I really disagree with some of the knights that showed up here. Leave your opinions in the comments, and I'll make an exclusive video with the knights you mentioned the most. And of course, thank you for watching this video until the end. And see you next time. May your cosmos burn to infinity.